Hey everyone, welcome back to another video where we're going to be checking out some more real-world coding. I'm blown away by the support and attention that my last video received, and I'm taking all the feedback I got to make this video an even better experience. So if you haven't watched the first video, I'll be showing examples of software engineering in the real world. Now, the real world doesn't just include a company environment, since in this video, I'll be showing a contribution that I made to an open source project and all the fumbles I made along the way. I'm also giving some insight into a major feature that I developed once at an actual tech company, which was much more complicated than all the examples I showed in the last video. So, whether you're a professional software engineer or a complete beginner that just stumbled into my video, make sure you watch to the end, as I'll be focusing less on code and all the techie terms in favor of actual English, and I'll be breaking down all the major concepts as best as I can. Alright, let's get right to it. So as I mentioned earlier, I made a contribution to open source software, which is software built that is free and accessible to anyone that wants. By accessible, I mean anyone can use the software and anyone can make changes to it, provided the changes are beneficial and improve it. React is a good example of a popular open source software. It's a front-end web framework that I use a lot, and I actually showed it in the last video. So open source is great for both improving the ecosystem of apps and startups and software development in general, but it's also a great way to gain experience without actually working at a company. I'll probably end up doing a video going more into depth on it, but this basically was my first ever open source contribution, and it was to a software called the Update Framework. Reading from the official website, it is, quote, a framework for securing software update systems. Did I fully understand what that meant? No. Did that stop me from seeing where I could help and pitch in? No. So I just looked over a list of the current issues that they had with their software, and I found the perfect first task that I thought a beginner like me could do. To summarize the task, there were a bunch of duplicate functions that weren't necessary in a particular file in the system. So what needed to be done was just removing those functions and replacing them with already existing ones. So I looked over the thread containing the conversation about the change, and it looked like there were a couple of people that wanted to pitch in but didn't really follow through. So I thought, why don't I be the next person to potentially not finish this? Just kidding though. Essentially, this was a simple change, especially for people that have worked on this software for a while. But for a newcomer, there's a lot of obstacles, including figuring out where you're supposed to look, what you're supposed to do in each file, and making sure that you don't break anything while you're there. So those are a couple of the things that I was thinking of as I went to do this change. So yes, this is the full list of changes that I made to the code at the end. As you can see here, I deleted a lot more lines of code than I added, which resembles essentially what the change was trying to do, which was just removing a lot of the duplicated and unnecessary functions. Now, as I scroll down, the code is definitely going to look really difficult to read and to understand. But what I'm doing is just swapping out function calls and method calls for the newer version that I was going to replace it with, and also deleting lines that weren't needed anymore. So yes, even though I didn't fully understand what was going on, I understood the task enough to just limit the scope of my activity to just accomplishing my change and not doing anything else. So to wrap this up, after I finished my first attempt at accomplishing this feature, I submitted what is known as a pull request to the repository. That way my code changes will be reviewed by someone and it would have a chance to actually become a part of the main product. So after submitting my first pull request, I was told that I was missing a whole bunch of stuff, including updates to the unit testing that was in place. Because I didn't reflect any of my changes within the unit testing, it could be dangerous moving forward, especially for a framework known for secure software updating. So fast forward to me stumbling along the way for a few days and to a week, I believe. We finally got the change completed, and I learned a whole bunch about collaborating with other individuals on projects. So now back to the real world. Nah, I'm kidding. Just back to more examples about working in an actual tech company on features. In contrast to the small examples I showed in previous videos, this feature was a major end-to-end integration of a new product in the company's system. I was to both work in the APIs, connect them with some middleware technologies, and to represent this in the front end with a new section on the company website. So if you'd like to follow along with the skeleton function I put at the bottom, that was essentially accomplishing the first step of this feature. This is written in the Python language, and in the first line, internal service is an instance of this basically internal service of the company. And this service was responsible for creating the new data that was coming from the new product that we were going to integrate with. This feature was already built. My job was just to create an instance of that object that accesses that data. Reminder, this is all generalized. There's a lot more going into this, but basically once we have the internal service object, the next thing I did was to fetch the results using the service, and we just have some collection of results. So because this is written in the Python programming language, typing isn't declared, which means that your code can get pretty confusing if it's not as clean and concise as possible. Here, results is plural because we're getting an array of results. But we don't want all the results. We just want specific ones according to parameters that we've set ourselves. And that filtering is represented by this SUMFilter function that takes in all the results and returns the true results, which is the ones that we actually want. And at the end of the function, we're returning some combination of our results and a response code for success. I forgot to mention, but if you look at the function parameters, get items from database, it takes a request and a response. This is meant to show that it's representing an API endpoint. This is a GET request, which means that in the front end, when the user presses some button or maybe just opens a new page, this request will be called and these items will be fetched and then returned to the front end. But there's a lot more work to be done on that front, and there's still more steps to do to actually connect it to the front end, which I'll show right now. So when you have a backend API filled with endpoints that retrieve items from a database or some server, you want to have some middleware functionality that connects your front end to your back end, meaning that all the items in your database and your server are fully accessible to your website. So in this JavaScript file, all the current endpoints available to this page are listed, along with the corresponding API request call. So if you see here, endpoints 1, 2, and 3 are all different kinds of requests. Endpoint 1 is a basic GET request that retrieves data from the database. Endpoints 2 and 3 are different POST requests that take in user-filled data from maybe a form, a checkbox, or submit box, an input form, and submits it to the database. Input 4 is the lucky little blue guy. That is my change, where it's a different kind of GET request where we're requesting data from a specific part of the database, which will be the new product that is part of this major feature, and that's step 2. Wow, thanks for sticking with me if you're still watching up to this point. This is a doozy, but we're down to the final step here, which is, as you guessed it, connecting everything to the front end and creating a new section for this product to be showcased. I haven't really talked a lot about my mentality going into this project, and I hope I don't make it seem really easy. This took about 2 weeks, and a lot of it was me just talking about it with other members of my team that had a lot more knowledge in front end and back end development than I did. Just taking ideas, trying out a bunch of crazy stuff that didn't work out, and eventually stumbling my way to the finish line, just like I did with the open source contribution earlier in the video. And that really is what software development is. We're not all geniuses. We're not going to get everything right at the first moment. But let me get right back to this third step. As you see up top, we'll be accessing the new data from this new section that I'm building out here. Initially, the items variable will be null, but that'll change once we're able to access our API successfully. And we have this set items function that will help us, which will set our items variable to the correct result. And we're going to use this function in this slightly larger function, set values, where a bunch of stuff happens, but at the core, it's going to call our API. And if we get a successful response, we're going to call set items with the response that holds the items. So long story short, if this API is successful, then we should see our items be populated in the variable. So finally, in the last step in the actual user interface, in the new section, for each item in our items array that contains the new product that's part of this feature, we're going to render in React a new kind of component that of course I can't get into, but basically the main change that's being done here. And to wrap it up, that is a full end-to-end product integration consisting of both back-end and front-end work. I learned a whole bunch from this product, including how to communicate with other engineers, how to ask the right questions, and not being afraid of asking dumb ones either. I'm sure if you're a beginner and half of maybe or even 90% of this stuff doesn't make sense to you, I was there. Like, really, software development is just about being real to yourself, understanding that a lot of things, a lot of concepts like APIs or endpoints or front end or back end, a lot of terms and jargon are stuff that everybody has to learn at some point. We all start from level 1, and I hope that you learn a little bit and you can upgrade yourself after watching this video. So if you made it to the end of this video, I'm so grateful, man. Like, my channel has blown up in the last few days, and I'm really grateful. I mean it. My small channel has more than doubled in size, and I'm still thinking of if I should do a 100 subscriber special, because I really appreciate all my early subs in the beginning when I used to do all those basketball videos that, you know, got more dislikes than likes, but that doesn't matter. Like, I'm super grateful, and I want to show you guys how much I appreciate it. So since you've watched to the end, tell me about your day, tell me what kind of videos you'd like for me to see, and I'll just pin one of your random comments. Oh yeah, tell me when you subscribed. I don't know if I can do that because I only have 150 or so subscribers, but I really care about each and every one of you, even the bots, even the automated bots. Thank you so much, and tune in for the next one because it'll be even better.